What's up, peeps? How's everybody doing today? It's Carpo here. Carpo's Corner, I guess you'd call it. And sometimes I use the term Carpo's Corner when I'm discussing something that is maybe more along the kind of... I hate the word self-help, and I hate the word awareness or woke or any of that crap. I guess what I'm talking about is just along the lines of self-improvement, if you will. But it gets into a lot of semantics and wordplay. Oh, exactly what is self-improvement? And what do we want out of life as individuals? And what should we be doing? It's really easy to compare ourselves to others. And so in this video, I wanted to talk about the ups and downs of life, but in a way that can help us all, I guess, relate to one another. Whenever I hear somebody speak about these problems that we have as human beings, the ones that almost everybody faces in their life, whether it be judgment or adversity, anger, or loss, I mean, we all have different stories and different perceptions, but we all have very similar experiences. And today it's cold out. The last couple days it's been getting colder. And hey, I live down near Portland, so yeah, it's nothing compared to what's going on up in northern Montana, where I was just at a few weeks ago. They've got up to like 4-foot snow drifts, and it's down in the single digits all the way across the Idaho Panhandle into eastern Washington, where I live. But I live down in the southern Washington by the border there in Oregon. So anyhow, I say that because when the cold sets in, sometimes it sets our mood off, like, well, damn it, summer's over, I'm going to have to wait to do something until next summer, and vacations are over, and it's kind of like back to work, the days are shorter, and but there's a positive side to that, and this is why I mentioned the cold. My thought is, yeah, it's cold here, but it's colder up north. In other words, no matter how bad shit gets, you've got to be able to have that perspective shift. You've got to be able to compare it to something worse. And I know that seems very obvious. It could always be worse is one of those things that, people like to say. It really is seeing the glass half full as much as possible. I mean, you can't always overcome your frustration or, angst or just being straight up pissed off about something or things not going your way. But, you've just got to look at it for what it is. You take each thing that comes your way and you make the best of it and realize that it wasn't as big of a hurdle as you might have thought it was. And lots of shit happens to us, and sometimes we're affected by something that happens that's everybody else is like, who cares? That doesn't even matter. But when it matters to you, it's important. A good example would be a few days ago. They declared, my governor in Washington here, Jay Inslee, they declared that they're going to have an emergency ban on all flavored vape products. And I mentioned this in a previous video, but this was before this emergency ban went into effect in our state. They're meeting on the 9th in like a week. And what they're going to do is put a 120-day temporary ban on all flavored vaping products and then decide what to do from there. Which all of this is supposedly tied into these vaping illnesses and deaths, which we now know are tied to these other cartridges. So it's frustrating to see what's going on and knowing that it's, basically being singled out as a target and it's not even the danger. I won't get into that, but I was trying to see the positive in it because I said, well, of course I can still order online maybe or go to another state. But I guess the positive side is my kids... Somebody comes, I was talking to somebody and he said that the vape shop has a 40% off all of their flavored juice because they have to clear out their inventory. And so I went down there and I bought some, and I was talking to the people behind the counter, and they explained the details with, how long it's going to be until it goes into effect and whatnot. But 90% of vape shops are expected to have to shut down because it's like 85% of their sales. And so I'm going too far off track into this, but I'm using it as an example because it's something that does affect me and a lot of people that I know that vape, but then there's other people who don't even vape the flavored types and they don't care. They're like, well, it's not going to affect me. As humans, when something affects us, we stand up and we fight it, if we can, speak our minds. But it's very hard to get people to stand with you if it's not something that moves them. I don't know. It's kind of like with cannabis movement. For years, I wanted to see cannabis legalized. I really just wanted it to be left alone. Of course, I'd rather have it available to people than not available, but then of course these big corporations take over and whatever. We know how the corporate entities run the show, even, I guess that's for another story altogether. But, so, some people, so far I've only come up with a couple first world problems. But they were just small examples of, things that affect me personally. But then there are the universal issues, which affect us all, like I mentioned earlier. Things like loss and, a celebration and whatnot. Yesterday was my youngest son's 7th birthday. And I'm like, wow, holy shit. My oldest son is 25, my youngest is 7. And just thinking about the amount of time that has gone by, that the experiences that we've had, the places we've gone, and how we try to, as family, embrace as much of the time as we can. And good things happen, bad things happen. A lot of folks say having kids in today's world is something that, is selfish. And I read an article the other day that was just so absurd. It was coming from some lady who was justifying why she didn't have kids, but instead of just saying I chose not to, she wanted to talk about how being a parent was selfish and people shouldn't have kids and you're just bringing them into a fucked up world and, their future is doom and gloom. And I say, it's funny because when I was younger, I said the same thing. When I was like, a teenager, I thought, do I want to have kids in this world? This is just chaos. But I did, and I'm glad I did. But it's not really an issue of whether you do or don't. It's whatever works for an individual, I guess. What I'm thinking is, it's so funny because without reproduction, our society, not just the society, but our species, is discontinued, if you will. So there will always be somebody doing the heavy lifting. But having kids is so much more than just, raising them and saying, as well as you can and making sure they get off to school and whatnot. You're teaching your kids values in today's world it's very difficult. Because of these hurdles that we have to jump, we don't know if our kids should have to face the same hurdles. For example, don't touch the hot stove, don't touch the hot stove, and of course the kid always does. And eventually you get burned, you hurt yourself, and you learn the hard way. And sometimes it's like, I feel like we're the same way as a society. Like, our entire world is just full of experiments of people saying, oh, well, we'll see what happens. And even though we know that we're going to destroy ourselves doing this, whatever it might be, whether it's society-wide or, on an industrial level or even in just self-destruction within an individual life, we know when we're not doing things properly, if you will, but we continue to do them. And I think we expect too much of ourselves as human beings. It seems that we've reached a point where we believe that since we have this technology and, all these modern conveniences, that we should all of a sudden have the responsibility and know how to use them properly. But we don't. We never did. These are things that we have to learn how to use. We didn't build social media to serve a purpose within our lives. Social media was invented and then we created what we wanted out of it. And it became a cesspool of self-depreciation and comparing your life to other people. Perfect reasons to, having ups and downs in life is one thing. They can be curbed a little bit by deleting your Facebook and your Instagram accounts, and perhaps even YouTube. But I still enjoy at least being able to watch videos and watch people who are talking in real time or in, using their given speech, their given voice to talk about issues that they find are important. But through this, I learned so much about what bothers other people and what ups and downs other people have. And I guess the main focus of this video, I'm jumping around a lot, but it's that many of the issues that we think we have are self-created, that they don't really exist. And I should say they exist because we make them exist. We manifest these fears, unwarranted fears. Our ancestors had to, if we saw a lion in the bushes, you probably heard this one before, even if you saw a shape in the bushes and it wasn't a lion, having your adrenaline flow and running away from it, it's better to be safe than sorry. It's better to protect yourself and to say, oh, well, it was just a twig or a rock, than to say, oh, well, it's probably not a lion and get eaten. Well, we never got rid of that. And this anxiety we carry around, we project it into our finances, into our futures. We're worrying about whether we made the right decision on something, or whether somebody likes us, or, how much we're respected or hated, or whatever it might be. And we put way too much energy into the unknowns, things that we can't change. So a certain amount of stress is healthy. It's natural. We have to have it to keep moving forward. This is why I mentioned in the video the other day about pharmaceuticals, and I was talking about how, many pharmaceuticals that are intended to numb your fears also numb the rest of your emotions. Or if they numb your anxiety or your depression, they numb everything. And so you lose that anxiety. Like, for example, taking benzodiazepines. They can be phenomenal for getting rid of stress, but they also get rid of a lot of other things. The desire to be more motivated, to, take on larger projects. If you're content all the time, you don't have that pushing, then, you become just flatlined emotionally. And I've talked to a lot of people like that, and it's a painful way to have a conversation when people can't share emotion or really feel in the conversation. And there's so much dampening of our emotions and our moods because not just through pharmaceuticals, but, alcohol, smoking cannabis, everything, cigarettes. We're just trying to fill this void of confusion within our lives. And, it's not something we should hate ourselves for. It's something we should be able to smile, recognize our vices, and then move forward. And what I found is that many of these problems that used to exist, they kind of just start to fall away. They melt away like, well, that's something I can't control. And it's important and a lesson for me to make sure that just because you're letting go of things you can't control, you still got to be aware of the things that you can control and actually make effort to make change. I've been in kind of a rut lately, so I acknowledge that it's not just me. Sometimes I'm like, how could I get so motivated to write 20 pages of a book and the next day I can't even get off the couch to do the dishes or something? And it's very difficult to make our emotions work for us, to make our motivation work for us, and it's really hard to navigate this world that we are not cut out for. Humans were not ever intended to live in a society where we have to deal with things like finances and cryptocurrency and regular currency and trying to figure out what the best investments are in metals or stocks and these huge companies, that are multifaceted with no real face, no human face on them. It's a fucked up world to navigate. Pardon the language, but it's the only way I can really put it. There are a lot of folks out there who will sit behind a camera like this and tell you, go get it, the life's there for the world's there for the taking, the world's your oyster, go out and get what you want, become a millionaire. Yeah, right, okay, well, not everybody is desiring to just constantly be go 16 hours a day and make a bunch of money. Most people just want to be happy. They just want to be content, have more time with their family, with their friends, more time with themselves. So if anything, if you're looking to gain a little bit of perspective in your life, go sit quietly for a while and just let your brain just kind of process things. We don't do that often enough. I don't meditate much, but I do sit quietly and let my mind process. And it really helps. It really does help. But people giving advice, it's just that, just advice. Everybody's emotions are different. Some people are really hurting, in a lot of pain. And it's usually because of these life issues that we all share. Like I said, loss. You could be the most stable person. I mean, you could be somebody that everyone looks up to, reveres and respects. You could, make a lot of money. You could be what you call successful, have a great family. And then you come home one day and find out that your parents died in a plane accident, or forbid, I don't even want to say it, but your family, in a house fire or something. These things happen every single day. And it's a way of saying that no matter how ready you are to handle emergencies, one event can break you, completely change you in not a great way, but also it can go the other way. You can have one realization, one epiphany when you're at your lowest point, and it's just like this aha moment where you can finally step over that border that blockage in your mind and say, all right, let's move forward now. It's time. And the more we think about that, the more we try to foster that, the happier that we'll be. At least that's what I believe. And I'm doing my damnedest to be happy in a world that, I don't feel like I'm cut out for. I've got the same problems as everyone else. There's always health issues, financial issues. Am I what kind of a person do I want to be? Who do I want to become? Oh shit, am I getting old? It's just life. And we don't need to focus on all that. And especially the very final issue, the major issue of contention in many people's lives, the biggest stressor, whether people admit it or not, is the fear of death. I don't really need to mention that or go into it, but you need to get cozy with your dark side. You need to get cozy with your darkness within. And that does not mean that you get in touch with hate or violence. I think people really misunderstand this when folks say, you have to embrace your darkness. Darkness isn't about violence. It's nothing. Your darkness isn't about anything that humans have constructed, or that, it's not a societal thing. It's a personal thing. And it just means that you fear nothing. You don't fear the biggest, darkest unknown in life, which is death. And you keep that close. You keep it comfortable, comfortably close, so you're always aware of it. So it doesn't sneak up on you and surprise you by when somebody passes away, or, it's like, well, that's just part of life. Learning to embrace it as part of life. The same way with all these little events that happen to us, the ups and downs, and having kids and the excitement, and then the postpartum depression that comes afterwards. There's ups and downs, and life's a roller coaster, so ride it well, and hopefully you have more ups than downs, but it is all just part of the process. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for listening. Talk to y'all later. Leave a comment. Whatever. Peace.